Good morning. How are y'all? Doing well today? Good. Today it's a beautiful day out today. You know, they were calling for rain, but looks like God had other plans for today. So today is a special day, as Leah said earlier. Today is the Festival of Creation. Uh, you may never have heard of the Festival of Creation before. It wouldn't surprise me, because it only became a festival of the church in 2016. That was the last year that the General Conference met, and the last discipline that we had came out in 2016. It's a day that is set aside to celebrate all that God has done in the act of creation. The entire creation, we celebrate it today. And it is also a time for us to remember our responsibility toward creation. You know, God created this beautiful garden for us, a place for us to live. And then God gave us the responsibility to care for that garden. God made us the stewards of that garden. You know, in the first chapter of Genesis, it talks about dominion, that we have dominion over the earth. And in the past, people have used that word dominion as license, that we have license to do with the creation whatever we wish to do with the creation, that creation was created to serve us, and we have no responsibility toward creation. And that is just plain wrong. That is not God's plan for creation. By dominion, with dominion comes responsibility. If we have the ability to manipulate, to control, to change God's creation, then we have a responsibility to do so in a way that fulfills God's plan for creation. God's plan for creation is wholeness. What I'd like to do this morning, we don't do this very often, but I would like to share with you the resolution, or well, not the whole resolution, we'd be here for way too long, but I want to share with you kind of an edited excerpt from Resolution 1033, found in the 2016 Book of Resolutions of the United Methodist Church. This is what the church has to say about creation, in part. If you want to read the whole thing, it's available. It's online. It's Resolution 1033 from the 2016 Book of Resolutions of the United Methodist Church. It begins, "We believe clean air is a basic right and necessity for all life. Air pollution puts at risk the health of our communities and threatens to forever alter the climate. To ensure that future generations inherit a legacy of clean air, we advocate for the adoption of strict enforcement of adequate standards to control both indoor and outdoor air pollutants, to protect vulnerable populations, including children and the elderly. We support efforts to protect our shared atmosphere by reducing emissions that contribute to ozone depletion, acid rain, and climate change. We believe water is a sacred gift from God. We further believe water is a basic human right and not a commodity to be traded for profit. We support the public's right to know that water is safe for drinking, swimming, and fishing, and whatever else we might use water for." I added that part. We are to tend God's land and care for all creation's creatures as faithful trustees with a commitment to preserve its goodness and diversity for future generations. We encourage economic and agricultural practices that conserve and promote the improvement of land resources, production of healthful foods, the preservation of a clean environment. We call on governments to support careful management of agricultural lands, protection of forests, the preservation of biodiversity among both plants and animals. We support national and international efforts to protect endangered species and imperiled habitats. We believe that natural resources, from the genes that form life to the air and outer space, are the common heritage of all humanity and therefore must be developed and preserved for the benefit of all, not just the few, both today and for generations to come. We believe God's whole earth has inherent value, and our use of these precious gifts, including energy resources, must balance the needs of human development with the needs of non-human creation and future generations. We support the concept of common heritage, guaranteeing that people have the right to enough of the resources of the universe to provide for their health and well-being. We support policies that encourage energy conservation and shift toward cleaner, renewable sources of energy. We advocate for just and sustainable energy policies that prioritize the needs of those individuals and communities with the fewest resources. We oppose the use of creation as a means of warfare or economic oppression and urge the abolition of chemical, biological, and nuclear weapons and the cleanup of sites contaminated with the waste byproducts of militarization. I almost couldn't get that word out. Militarization. Yeah. We encourage measures to minimize the use of toxic and hazardous substances, strengthen right to know policies so that individuals and communities can understand threats from pollution, and support policies that hold polluters responsible for the cost and the cleanup impacts. We acknowledge the constantly imperfect state of our knowledge regarding the impact of new technologies and urge the development of those technologies most in accord with God's plan of wholeness for all creation. As the United Methodist Church, we understand our responsibility to address and our complicity in the challenges facing God's creation. We urge all United Methodists, local faith communities, agencies, and institutions to examine their roles as caretakers of creation and to study, discuss, and work to implement this resolution. That's part of the resolution. It goes on for a few more pages and in a lot more detail. So like I said, if you want the details, they're there. You can read them. What this resolution and others like it, they are the result of a shared understanding that the church has. The United Methodist Church has a shared understanding of God's creation and our role in it. You know, sometimes the United Methodist Church falls under accusation, indictment for being a church that has no beliefs, and nothing could be farther from the truth. We definitely have beliefs. We have doctrines. This is part of our beliefs. Part of our doctrines is that we are stewards of God's creation, charged with the care of that creation. It's really very, very simple. In the beginning, God created. And God looked at what God had created, and God said, "This is very good." All that God created, God called good. And what God has called good, we dare not name otherwise. God gave human beings both the power and the responsibility to take care of God's creation. It all belongs to God. We don't own any of it. We pretend that we own land. We pretend that we own resources. In reality, it all belongs to God. And we have use of it for a time. We have the responsibility to care for creation. And to abuse that power or to shirk that responsibility is to fall short of God's expectation for us. God expects us to take care of this earth. To fall short of God's expectation is to sin. It is to sin. To do less than our best in caring for creation is to sin against God. Therefore, we will do well. We will do well both individually and collectively as a faith community to consider well the ways that we are impacting creation. What are we doing to take care of this planet? How are we protecting our water resources? What are we doing to protect the air? How are we minimizing our impact on this earth? We do well to consider that, to study that, and then to take such steps as we are able to become better stewards of this gift of creation. That's our challenge today. Our challenge today is to examine both our own personal lives, to see what steps could we take as individuals to make this planet, well, honestly, to keep this planet healthy for our children's children's children. They need a place to live, and it's our responsibility to make sure they have it. What can we do individually? And then also, what can we do as a church, as a community? I just urge you to ponder that.